Jo Leute, was geht's ab? Willkommen wieder zurück zum Livestream auf meinem Kanal. Und heute sind wir hier für den Part 4 Marshall Gone Missing. Wenn ihr die anderen 3 Parts noch nicht geschaut habt, dann geht zu meinen Playlist PAW Horror Stories. Dort sind alle meine Dinge, was ich schon gemacht habe. Und ja, wenn ihr soweit sind, wir starten gleich mit dem Part 4 Marshall Gone Missing. Yo guys, welcome to my live stream back. Today we are going to do the part 4 of Marshall Gone Missing. If you missed the last 3 parts, go to my playlist of PAW Horror Stories, and there are the rest of the other 3 parts. Go there and maybe watch the 4th again. And yes, when you are ready, we are gonna begin the story shortly.
When Marshall started his runaway journey into Jake's Mountain, a lot of questions plagued his mind. Most of them were about the Paw Patrol and whether or not it was right to abandon his duties like that while also abandoning the people who depended on him. He also wondered if his friends really did hate him or was it just a heat of the moment. Plus, there were his parents. He could have gone to them easily or even asked Ryder to just go home, but he felt too ashamed to face his parents as a failure. But the biggest question that was on Marshall's mind at the moment was if he made a wrong turn somewhere. The mountain area he was traveling in was unfamiliar to him, and he had been on this mountain a lot in the past. Great, another thing I'm not good at. Following the stupid road. He turned to his left and saw the growing storm in the distance, which made his tail shiver. If he didn't find Jake soon, he was going to have to hold out against the storm. Maybe I call Ryder. Maybe this wasn't such a good idea. It meant facing the consequences for his actions, and his former friends, but Marshall knew it was smarter than ending up in the middle of the storm with no protection. Just as he was about to press his dog tag, he gasped upon seeing a family of bunnies hopping in his truck's way. Whoa! Look out! Turning the truck to the right, Marshall and his truck flew off the path and started going downhill. Sharp rocks scattered everywhere as Marshall bumped and jerked in his seat, doing his best not to get motion sick. He tried pressing the brakes, but the ridge was too steep. I like rocky road, but this is ridiculous. Marshall then gasped when he saw what the hill was leading him to, a deep cliff with a one-way ticket to puppy heaven. He tried pressing the brakes again, but they refused to budge. Marshall's scream echoed in the valley as the fire truck reached the edge and began to plummet to his doom. Without thinking, he cried out, "Arf! Ladder!" His ladder opened up from behind and Marshall turned around, jumping onto it as it continued to extend while he climbed up as fast as he could. When he reached the end, he jumped as high as he could and grabbed the ledge of the cliff, saving himself just in the nick of time. Grunting, he climbed up and lay on his back, panting over and over again. That was too close. Crash! Marshall's heart sank as he opened his eyes and carefully peered over the cliff. He whimpered upon seeing his prized fire truck smashed and on fire. Even worse was everything that he owned was down there. His food, clothing, gear. All Marshall had with him now was his collar. I really did it this time, whispered Marshall, shaking his head. How could this be any worse? Just as soon as he said that, a crash of lightning echoed in the air as rain began to fall down on him. Of course. Like any pilot, Skye hated flying in rough weather. Still, she was a professional and wouldn't let herself get held back in her mission to find Marshall. Skye never told anyone, but she used to have a crush on Marshall when she first met him. That was until she thought they were better off as friends. Marshall was nice, but he wasn't boyfriend material for her. Although if her girl intuition was correct, she suspected Everest might have a thing for him. Instead, she decided to set her eyes on someone else. Skye sighed as she glanced down at the road below her. Chase, in his spy mobile, was focused on one thing, finding his best friend. Chase's expression told everyone that he was worried the most. The fact that he even completely dropped his professional attitude, screaming at himself while crying for his best friend, showed how much he really regretted his hateful words at Marshall. Not that Skye didn't regret her decision either. Especially, after what Marshall did for her that one time against some trouble from her past. While the pups were free to do whatever they want, within reason, Sunday was patrol day. That was the day Ryder split the group into 3 teams of 2 to watch for any dangers or emergencies. However, due to a late-night rescue that required all of the Paw Patrol, except Skye and Marshall, only one group was out today. The rest had been given the option to sleep in, even Chase, who normally loved patrol day. And so, geared up in their pup packs, the duo headed out to do their weekly patrol. Skye actually tried to remember a time when she hung out on patrol with only Marshall, but couldn't recall. The only 2 pups she ever went out alone with was Chase, because of reasons. And Zuma, because she saw him as her kid brother, even if she was shorter than him. So what do you want to do? Check out the farms? The beach? The playground? Asked Marshall, jumping up and down like a newborn pup, wagging his tail and panting. Skye chuckled at his adorableness. He was cute and nice, but Skye wanted somebody more mature. Someone like Chase. Thinking about Chase again? Asked Marshall, surprising her and laughing when he saw her blush. She didn't know how him of all pups knew of her crush on their leader pup, but at least he didn't blab it out. I don't know why you don't tell him. I'm sure he'll accept. But he doesn't seem to notice me like, a girl. I mean, he's always so serious about being a police dog that he'd probably be too focused on that to even, like me, answered Skye. Marshall snorted and did his best to hold his laughter in. Oh, geez. What? Nothing, said Marshall, laughing out loud. Nothing. He then stopped and tilted his head upon seeing something across the street. Hey, what's that? Skye turned across the street where there was an empty parking lot usually, only it had something that Skye hadn't seen in a long time. A series of pink and decorated trailers and moving can with the words Dog Beauties of USA. She didn't know why they would be here of all places since Adventure Bay was a small town and not a city like LA or New York. Probably just here to rest before moving on. Nothing, said Marshall, laughing out loud. Nothing. He then stopped and tilted his head upon Hey, didn't you used to be a model? Asked Marshall, asking Skye as they got closer. Skye sighed. Kinda. My entire family is in the dog modeling business. My sisters are huge stars in Europe, and my mom and dad were big back in their day. They're retired now. I used to do it, but I realized it wasn't for me. I wanted to get into flying. So what happened? Asked Marshall, sitting down. One day, I saw a small plane and got inside. I accidentally activated it, but I was able to control it. I spotted a fire in a building with a mother and her baby on the roof. I landed, got them to safety, and my exploits were reported on TV. Ryder soon contacted me and asked if I wanted to be part of Paw Patrol. Took me all day to convince my parents, but they let me go, explained Sky, thinking about that day was the day she felt alive for the first time in her life and could really do something. All the photo shots and dress-ups weren't that exciting to her. She felt like a doll, living a life she never wanted. Do you want to check it out? Maybe it has some of your old friends, said Marshall. Sky shook her head. Nah, I wasn't close to anyone. Let's just continue with Patrick Dash. Oh my gosh, Tina. Look who it is, shouted a snobby-sounding voice. Sky's eyes widened before she shut them down and cursed in her head. Oh no. Not them. Anyone but them. Slowly turning around, Sky saw a poodle with a fancy haircut and a diamond pink dress and a golden retriever with curled fur wearing a light blue dress with a tiara on her head. Suddenly, Sky felt like she was under a spotlight in a tight dress and couldn't breathe as everyone stared at her. Again. The two smirking dogs walked up to scare Sky and confused Marshall. Well, look what we have here. It's our old good pal Sky, said the poodle. You know them, Sky? Asked Marshall, but Sky only kept her head down low. Oh, we know her all right. I'm Tina, and this is Bibi. We used to be best friends. Isn't that right, Sky? Teased the retriever. Sky turned away, biting her lip as she remembered that awful nickname. That name which took months to forget. Leave me alone. What was that, you little crybaby? Asked Tina. Growling, Sky screamed, I said leave me alone. And don't call me that. I'm not a little scarred pup anymore. The two fashion dogs laughed and shook their heads before turning to Marshall. Has Sky never tell you how bad she was as a model? How she always posed wrong, or knocked over stage equipment. Let's not forget that time she fell off the stage once, hurt her knee, and cried. Only because you pushed me. You always were bullying me around, shouted Sky, looking ready to rush at them. You can't prove anything, said Bibi, before looking at Sky's clothes and rearing back in disgust. Ugh, and I see your sense of style has only gotten worse. Look at what you're wearing. This is my wing gear. I'm a member of Paw Patrol. A rescue pup. I do far more good in the world than you two fufus ever do, countered Sky. Oh, please. You in Paw Patrol? I bet you're just their servant or something. There is no way they would take crybaby like you, Sky, said Tina. Sky was about to say something, but Marshall growled first. You're wrong. Sky is our friend, and she's one of the best flyers I've ever seen. Standing in front of her like a knight, he continued, Sky has saved so many people with her flying skills that we couldn't do half of our rescues without her. She's brave, smart, graceful, talented, and fun to hang out with. A lot less than I could say for you two uglies. The insulted dogs gasped and growled. Watch it, Fire Boy. We happen to be the top 2 models of our industry. Then the industry stinks if it thinks you two are beautiful. Sky has a beautiful spirit, and that's more important than any makeup, dress, or jewelry you wear, shouted Marshall. Marshall, thought Sky, who felt her heart skip. She never had anyone ever stand up to her like that. What are you? Her boyfriend? Asked Bibi. No, but I am her friend. And as her friend, I feel inclined to do this. Marshall smirked before saying. Arf. Water cannon. Sky watched as Marshall's water cannon came out of his pup pack and sprayed her 2 bullies with ice-cold water. The 2 screamed in fury and despair as the water ruined their perfect appearances. They ran away, calling for assistance while crying like babies. Sky and Marshall laughed as they saw the whole thing, the former wishing she had a camera to record this and put it online. It would be the perfect revenge against those 2 for everything they had done to her, but this was enough for now. That was so awesome, shouted Sky as she rushed over and licked a blushing Marshall. Thanks for standing up for me. What are friends for? Replied Marshall, putting his water cannon away. Let's continue with the patrol, shall we? Let's, answered Sky as they continued down the street, an extra skip in her walk. Marshall had helped her deal with her old bullies, and she repaid him by bullying him back with the others. She felt unworthy of being his friend and swore she would do everything she could to bring her friend home. She glanced down where she saw Chase and found him stopping in the middle of the road. Pressing her communicator tag, she called Chase. Did you find something? Yeah, I found a bunch of tracks. It smells like Marshall's truck, said Chase on the other line. Really? That's great, shouted Sky as hope began to fill in her chest. She quickly contacted Ryder. Ryder. We found tracks of Marshall's fire truck. Great work, pups. We'll try to head up to your location, but this storm is getting pretty rough, said Ryder. Hang tight until we get there. But Ryder, we need to find Marshall. He could be miles ahead. Any time we wait will waste any chance of finding him, shouted Chase. And what happens if you get lost in the storm as well? It's best if we do this together. Can I at least use my drone? That way I can stay on the search and still stay put, suggested Chase. Deciding to support Chase, Sky quickly said, I'll be with him at all time, Ryder. Don't worry. Alright, just be careful. Ryder out. Good luck, Chase, said Ryder. Super Spy Chase is on the case. Drone. As Sky came down for a landing, she saw the drone shoot out and fly in the direction of the tracks landing down. She rushed over to Chase, being mindful of the rain, and saw him concentrate on the drone screen. She didn't say anything as Chase concentrated, but she could see the worry in his eyes. Come on, Marshall. You have to be somewhere. Muttered Chase. I have to find him. Have to find him. Chase. Said Sky, putting a paw on his shoulder. We will find him. I promise. Chase nodded in thanks as he went back to his drone screen. Marshall normally liked being wet, but not this kind. After a grueling climb, the poor pup was forced to brave the mountain through the harsh storm. He was almost at Jake's Mountain by the sight of the winter frost back just a few miles away. Still, he needed a place to rest and wait for the storm to calm down. He had tried contacting for help, but his tag was damaged from the fall he took. Even if he wanted to call for help, which he did, he couldn't. Teeth chattering, Marshall braved his way through the rain and cold winds, hoping the lighting didn't hit him as he made his way further up the mountain. Need to find some place to rest. He then noticed something nearby and gasped with joy. A cave. It was big and looked to be very deep. Putting extra energy into his legs, Marshall made into the cave and sighed in relief upon feeling the rain stop hitting his fur. Shaking the water off, Marshall walked in a bit deeper, but made sure not to go too far since it was completely dark and he had no flashlight. It's really big. I wonder if this was used by somebody at one time, said Marshall as he sat down and yawned. I'm beat. The events of the day were finally hitting Marshall as he felt his sore body start to shiver again and his stomach growl. He had no food. No clothing to keep him warm. And he was alone. Alone. Marshall had never been alone before until now. He always had his friends or family with him. But never just himself. When he was with his friends, he always felt warm, safe, and happy. Now that he was alone, it was cold, dark, and scary. I don't like being alone, muttered Marshall, closing his eyes and sobbing. I want my mom and dad. I want Ryder. And I want my friends. I want them so much. I want to go home. He didn't care if the pups hated him or he was a klutz, he wanted to be back home, curled up with his best friends by the fire. He wanted Ryder to give him his teddy bear. He wanted Chase to lay beside him and keep him warm like all the other times he had gotten cold and lonely. He tired hitting his collar again. Ryder? Chase? Anyone? Please, find me. I need help. I want to go home. Please. He cried again, just as the roar of thunder echoed. Or at least, he thought it was thunder. Marshall heard a growing growling noise as he looked up and saw, standing on its 2 feet, was a giant, angry, black bear. Marshall felt his entire body freeze up as it raised its sharp claw. A second later it came down upon him.
So, wir sind fertig mit Part 4. Morgen wird Part 5 gestreamt werden. Und deswegen, Leute, nicht vergessen Part 5. Dann, ja, abonniert meinen Kanal, aktiviert die Glocke und lasst beim 5. Livestream, beim 5. Part dort eine Benachrichtigung, wenn ich live gehe. Und ja, Leute, das ist es für heute. Hoffe, es hat euch gefallen. Und wir sehen uns